Hello, hello. My name is Kayla Brick. I am an Upwork coach and professional illustrator. And today we are talking about how to pick what numbers to charge people on here. So let's say you get a message from a client and you're starting to talk numbers. It's a good idea to know kind of where you sit, what decisions you want to make in terms of charging clients. We have two different options on Upwork, a fixed rate contract and an hourly contract. Fixed rate contract is just you get paid all of the money, the budget with that client at the end of the contract. So you do all of the work. You might have different checkpoints, but there's no determination of how many hours you're working on that. It's just you work for X amount of hours, you are going to know what that number is, and then you are paid that flat fee at the very end of the work. That is my preference, my bias. I love a fixed rate contract. So if you hear my bias, just know that it's there. I definitely like fixed rate contracts on Upwork better, and I'm going to explain why that is. The other is hourly. So we have an hourly based rate. So that just means you are paid, say, 15, 30, 45, 50, 100 an hour. Let's say that the project took you 1 hour to do and your hourly rate is 100. You're going to be paid 100 an hour. If it took you 2, it's going to take you 200 for the end of the work. Hourly on Upwork is the primary thing that Upwork puts in front of all clients' faces when they land on your profile. This is not something that we could remove. I wish we could sometimes, but we can't. So this is just, it's baked into our profile. There's nothing we can do about it. So I've had this at either 15 or 30 an hour for a very, very long time. And so this number being super low on the front end makes clients feel like they can talk to me. And that is really what I'm trying to do with every aspect of my profile on here is I don't want to make anybody who arrives on my profile feel like they have this little bit of anxiety, a little bit of hesitation to actually reach out to me, which is what the main goal of a profile on here, to have the client reach out via messenger on here. So that's the only reason I keep it super low. I've always had it at 15. I've been playing around with 30 just to see if it changes anything. But my personal recommendation to you, I would highly recommend that you keep this really, really low on here. So that could be 15 an hour, it could be 30, it could be 35 if you really want to push it. But I like to keep it super low because this is not really what you're going to be working at. This is not even close to what you're going to be working at because you're going to have that discussion with the client in the messaging center. And then you're going to talk logistics, you're going to talk revisions, you're going to talk time frame, all that stuff is going to be discussed. And then the client, the contract, all that stuff's going to land a little bit differently on where you guys are actually going to be on budget. So I never actually work for 30 an hour. I've never worked at 15 an hour, but I just keep this super low just so that clients feel like they can reach out to me. So they don't feel like they're being pitched. Let's talk about fixed rate contracts. So fixed rate is my preference on Upwork. I like to do a fixed rate because I always know when it comes to the kinds of work that I'm doing. So if I do, for example, portrait work on here, I know on average a portrait's going to take me between an hour and 2 hours. And if it's a really complicated one, it may take 4, but it's usually on average 1 to 2. And this is why I recommend that all of you guys actually time yourselves to see how long work takes you to do, because this is going to be really key when it comes to deciding fixed rate contracts. So if we time ourselves, you'll know how long something takes you. So you'll know really what your personal hourly rate is and what you would like to be working at. So whenever I think of a portrait, for example, I know it's going to take me 2 hours. So if I want to be working at 100 an hour, for example, I might charge, 3 or 400 or 500 for that portrait, and then kind of knock it out really early. The client doesn't know how long it takes me to do that portrait. They just know it got done, right? So it's really kind of on me to make sure that the hours are matching what my personal hourly rate is. The key there is actually knowing and being honest about how long things take you to do, because if you do a fixed rate contract and you misjudge how long something takes you to do, you're going to be stuck working for much less and probably closer to 30 or 15 an hour because you misjudge how long something was actually taking you to do. So you're spending 8 hours when you charge them 200, for example, and then you're not really making it up in terms of the hourly rate on that. So that is the way that I view hourly versus fixed rate. I always, always, always am trying to get people to move from hourly to fixed rate. I don't like to do hourly on Upwork. Makes things complicated for not just you, but also for the client, because they don't understand oftentimes how long things take you to do. So they may just think, oh, I'll do the hourly, and then you charge them for how long it actually took you to do. And it's kind of a sticker shock for them. Whereas fixed rate, it's all up front. Everybody knows exactly what's being paid. There's no question marks in the contract. It's very, very clear. And so I really like that. It makes it easy for the client to understand what's going on. They get the work really quickly, especially if you offer only stuff that's going to be something you can knock out really quickly. Something like character work or illustration for me is going to be just kind of, done in 2 to 3 hours or something like that. So I could be working at what is actually closer to 100 an hour most often, or even more than that in certain cases where I've done, these $2,000 contracts on here. Really just depends. It is really up to you ultimately how you want to structure your deals on here. But I do recommend that if you're just starting on Upwork, if you're just very, very early on, you don't have a lot of reviews, if you're just getting your first 2 reviews, for example, really good idea to just do, $120 to $200 contracts. $100, $50, $80, those kinds of things are all going to be in the right price range just to get these first couple 5-star reviews. And I would just go in with what the client wants. So don't try and go above what their current budget is or below their current budget. Just go exactly where they're at and say something like, in exchange for a review at the end of the contract. Not a good review, by the way. We're not trying to twist anybody's arms here. Just a review. Then I will do this particular project for that base budget, whatever it is, so whatever they started at, just don't try and negotiate at any point if you're just trying to get your first couple of reviews on here. If you are a little further along, you have a couple of reviews, you're starting to get some invites, you've got an optimized profile, something like that, just keep your hourly super low, raise your rates, add a little revision policy in there, something like that. We want to be charging people based on added revisions, stuff that was not in the original contracts. This is one of those things that's going to be person to person. But in general, if you're just starting out, don't try and negotiate. Just go straight in with what they are asking for. Make sure it's not going to kill you in terms of the workload or anything like that. But just try and get that in there. Review for the budget, that kind of thing. And then as soon as you get your first couple reviews, we raise our rates. And we don't work hourly. We just try and move people towards fixed rate contracts. Time yourself, see how long things actually take you to do, and then work backwards to see what you want to be working at hourly wise to get that fixed rate contract into a place that makes sense for you. If you have any questions on what you should be charging, I'm going to make other videos on this and break it down a little bit more. But this is a work in progress. Always, always, always. You might charge something that's a little bit too much. You might not fully understand who you're working with and then have some issues on the back end, things like that. So just don't worry about getting it right the first time. You don't have to be super amazing at negotiation or anything like that. This is going to be a work in progress. So just open the contract, try your best to get the hourly just where you want it to be, and don't worry about it. You're going to make a couple mistakes. You're going to do some contracts that are going to be a lot more work than you thought they were going to be, and that is just part of it. That's part of freelancing. You can always ask me questions. I have a free school group if you have any questions for me, and I'm going to put a video on screen about picking better jobs on here and not wasting connects on Upwork too, because that is a whole other thing on making sure that we actually work with the right kinds of clients before we even have a conversation about money. Very, very important. I'm going to put it on screen for you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.